I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 222, Letting Go of the Story. If your husband is struggling with a pornography problem and you want some help with it and you are not finding the resources that you like, you are in the right place. My name is Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach. I am an active member of the LDS faith, and I am the wife of a former porn addict. And on this podcast, I am going to share with you the tools that you need in order to start your healing journey. This is where I'm going to show you how to dive deep into intentional living, how to rekindle connection with your spouse, how to manage all that emotional turmoil that you're feeling, how to break the addiction cycle that you have to your husband's addiction, and tell you all of the ways to do that and start healing. I'm so glad that you're here, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, my ladies. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. How are you guys doing? Summer is winding down. I have so many friends whose kids started at school this week or the week before. My husband, we've been homeschooling all throughout the whole summer, so it hasn't been our first week back at school, but there are so many back to school things. How are you guys doing? How are you dealing with the list of back to school items that you're supposed to bring and the binders and all of the things? My sister, actually, her school has this great thing, and I think it's genius because you know how every school has like this kid needs this red binder for this one thing and a yellow 3-ring binder for this and this many pencils. They have like a program. I'm sure all the schools have it now, but I was just so impressed. They have like some kind of company that they work with, and they'll just order it all for you, and they will deliver it to your school so your kid doesn't have to bring it in on the first day. That was genius. I don't know why people haven't been. A mom definitely thought that up. Some mom who was tired of all the back to school lists and all the items that they had to bring on the first day of school, and now a company will do it for you and you just order it through them. That's amazing. I think it's fantastic. Anyway, how are you guys doing? All the back to school nights, meet the parent, meet the teacher. Ladies, take a deep breath. You're doing great. I did want to let you guys know about a couple of things that are coming up. Okay, number one, I have a live class, a live event that I'm going to be doing in September. And it sounds like it's far away, but it's actually only 2 weeks, okay? On September 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing a live event called How to Break Free from Your Husband's Pornography Problem. And I am going to be going over the 3 lies that are perpetuated in our society that are actually keeping you stuck. These are lies that you've heard that are supposedly really good for you, and here's how you move on. And I'm going to be going over what those are and why they're actually keeping you stuck and what to do instead so that you can start moving forward. I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes so that you guys can sign up. It's completely free. Again, on September 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be going live on Zoom. I would love for you guys to come join me, learn what those 3 lies are so you can learn how to stop following those and actually start doing the right thing that's going to help you move beyond your husband's pornography problem and get off that emotional roller coaster. So again, September 12th, that's a Thursday, September 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be going live, doing a live event, and I would love to see you there. And again, it's totally free. So I'll put the link in the show notes and you can register today. The other thing is that I'm probably going to be doing a new masterclass in the month of September on how to conquer triggers. If you are not on my email list, go get on my email list, and you will be able to know when that comes out. I will announce it as soon as I can, as soon as I have it planned and up and ready to go, but it's probably going to be in September. And it's because it's been something that's been coming up a lot with questions that people have, with all conversations with all of you, in my coaching with all of you. This is what's been coming up. So I want to do a deep dive masterclass on this. And I can't believe I don't have a masterclass on this already. So you guys will be able to join for that. That is something I will teach inside my program. But like I usually do, I will open up a few spots for those of you that want to join live just for the week. So if you're not on my email list, go get on that. One way to get on my email list is to come to the live webinar. So sign up for the webinar. You'll already be on the list and you'll be the first to know about all this kind of stuff. Okay? I debated what I was going to talk about today so many times, and I have 400 million things that I could talk about, all of which sound amazing. And what I really wanted to dive into today is something that I'm actually going to be teaching more in depth at my in-person retreat in October. So again, come to that, ladies. I want to meet you in person. I want to give you a hug. I want to show you what coaching is like. I want to give you a break, and I also want to give you a breakthrough. And if those both sound really amazing to you, this retreat is for you. The in-person retreat in October 17th to 20th. I'll put the link in the show notes to that as well. You can go get all the details and save your spot, because it is a limited, intimate, exclusive retreat. I do not take very many people on this retreat. I do not open it that much so that it can stay intimate, so that I can get a lot of one-on-one coaching with every woman that comes. I want you there. And one of the things that I'm going to be going over and teaching is really how to reset emotionally so that you stop feeling so overwhelmed. And one of the tools that I'm going to be teaching at this retreat is letting go of your story. And that's what I want to talk about today. And there's so many reasons why this came up, but one of the reasons why this came up for me is because I think I've shared this with you guys on the podcast before. There was a trip to Hawaii that my family and I took many, many years ago before we had kids. And we were probably been married for about 2 years at this time. And I didn't know until maybe a few years ago that during that trip, my husband this was in the dark ages. There were no smartphones. Okay. He did not have internet access. I did not know he was looking at porn at the time. And we were gone for almost 2 weeks on a trip with my family. And so there was a time during this trip that he intentionally went to the beach by himself. I just said I didn't want to go. He said he wanted to go to the beach. So he went to the beach by himself and to look at other women. We've talked about this before. He went intentionally to look at other women, kind of to scratch the itch, shall we say, of wanting to look at porn, but being unable to, okay? I did not know this until a few years ago. And when I found this out, it really ruined that trip for me, okay? And any of you who have been through something similar, you know this. When you find out details about your husband's porn use, when you find out what he's been looking at, when it happened, where you were when it happened, all of those things, it can seem very much like it ruins that scenario. For example, if you find out that he watched it on your anniversary, or if you found out that this romantic trip that you guys had planned that was just the two of you, and then you find out that blah, 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 right? All of these things, it can feel very much like it ruined the experience. That's definitely how I have felt. And I have processed quite a bit of it, but I knew there were some things still in there, because anytime that this trip in particular would get brought up, just someone in the family would be like, oh, hey, remember that? Then I would feel that little bit of like that tightening in my stomach. You guys know this. And I would just feel a little bit of that pain. And I knew that I needed to process it and let it go, but I hadn't yet fully. And yesterday I was at my sister's house and she was going through a bunch of books. And I was like, oh my gosh, this book. She's pulling out all of these historical books and she pulls this one out and I said, oh my gosh, I swear I've read that one before. I think I've borrowed it from you and I've read it. And she goes to hand it to me and she's like, oh yeah, you must have read it. You stopped right here. This is your bookmark. And she pulls out a page and it is like the page. It is a schedule. Once upon a time when I was in college, I managed several tanning salons. And it's like the work schedule from the tanning salon. It is the flight ticket from Philadelphia to Salt Lake from one trip where I flew out there. And also in that is a note from my husband from Hawaii. And it's like, I'm so glad that I'm here in Hawaii with you. I love you so much. I would marry you again. All these beautiful things. And I sat there looking at that piece of paper and I knew that it was from this trip. It's the only time we've been to Hawaii together. And it kind of ruined it a little bit. And I was like, yeah, this is a really nice note. But remember what happened after this. Okay, it was like a really long trip. We spent time on the Big Island. Then we went to Waikiki, and this happened on Waikiki. But like the note that he'd written was before that. And he told me that he saw me across the table. I passed him the note. He could obviously tell what I was thinking about. And he said, this was before we went to Waikiki. And I totally meant it. Anyway, and I just sat there and I watched myself want to hold on to the story. Ladies, and as I talked to him about this last night, I just came up against, and this is what I think most often, is I came up against my own self. Ladies, we think that the reason we haven't moved forward beyond our husband's pornography problem is because of his past actions, because of the hurt, because of what has happened. And that might be true a little bit, but the majority of the time, the reason we're not moving forward is because of ourselves. The thing that's blocking us is us. And most of the time, it's in the story that we tell. It's in our inability, our unwillingness to let go of the story. To be unwilling to let go of the story of how he hurt us, of how awful that trip was, or how much we thought that trip was amazing, and then we found out X, Y, and Z, and now it's ruined. Because we feel, and there's so many reasons we do this, but one of the reasons is because we feel so justified. The story justifies all the hurt and all the pain. But ladies, again, I can't say this enough, your pain needs no justification. The emotion that you feel is valid. You don't need to justify it with a story. You don't need to validate it with a story. You don't have to keep the story in order for you to have experienced what you experienced. Does this make sense? You don't have to keep repeating the story to yourself over and over. All that does is keep the pain with you longer. And I also promise you that letting go of the story doesn't mean that what happened to you didn't happen, or that it was okay. Okay? That's one of the biggest reasons. One of the biggest reasons why we hold on to our story is because our brain thinks that if we let it go, it means either one, that, it didn't happen, that we just made it up, we're crazy, we read too much into it, we're being over dramatic, or two, that it didn't hurt as bad as it did. Or number three, that we're giving him permission to do it again. And none of those are true. All it is our brain thinks that if we keep our pain with us, it will somehow protect us from feeling pain in the future. And I understand completely why our brain does this. It's like if I cross the street and I get hit by a bus because I wasn't looking, then every time I go up to a street, my brain's going to be like, hey, remember when we got hit by a bus? We need to constantly be aware that we might get hit by a bus, which is great when we're crossing the street. But it doesn't work for me when I'm just in my house. I don't need to live with that constant anxiety of getting hit by a bus when I'm in my house. It doesn't serve me. Now, it's a great tool that our brain has, again, so that the next time I go to cross the street, I look both ways and I make sure there's not a bus coming. But until that point, living with it 24/7, it doesn't help me when I'm getting ready or taking a shower or when I'm doing homework with my kids or when I'm recording a podcast. That anxiety of a bus coming and me getting hit by a bus isn't serving me. All it does is create more anxiety here. And our brain is doing that same thing with our pain in the past. Projecting it onto the future, saying, hey, remember how that bad thing happened? It could happen again. It makes us think that it will hurt less, and it won't. All it's doing is creating so much anxiety here that we can't even allow ourselves to experience the present. Does this make sense? You guys with me? So I want you guys to ask yourselves, where am I keeping the story? What am I unwilling to let go of? What haven't I let go of yet? What parts of my story have I not let go of? And the trip to Hawaii was definitely one that stuck out in my mind. You'll know this. It'll just come up to you. What part of the story have I not let go yet? What memory am I holding on to? What memory have I not released yet? And ladies, I want to offer that you start giving yourself permission to release it, to let go of the story. And what that means is that the next time you think about it, your brain wants to tell you that same thing it's been telling you. Oh, this is the story. The story is that trip to Hawaii was ruined by what my husband did. That's the story. And that's what my brain wants to bring up every single time I think about Hawaii. Now, letting go of that story looks like recognizing that thought, processing the emotion behind it when it comes up, and then choosing to rewrite it. Not because I'm ignoring what happened, but because that's not what I want to remember or focus on. Because guess what? Until I knew he did that trip was awesome. I can choose to think about that trip however I want. And I can choose to think about it as being all negative, all positive, or both. I can hold both. I can hold the parts that were amazing and beautiful. The parts where we got to walk on a black sand beach and explore a volcano. I can think about the time where we got to go to the beach with my whole family and how we got to go to Pearl Harbor. But none of that is what I think of right now. All I think of is the negative. All I think about it is in terms of my husband's pornography problem and how badly he hurt me. That's the story. So when I say let go of the story, it could be more of an acceptance. It's saying, yes, there was a negative in there. but there was also a lot of positive and allowing myself to hold both. And sometimes, ladies, that letting go of the story might mean letting go of that negative, not needing to tell it to yourself. Because really that's what's happening, is when we keep the story, it's our brain saying, I want to keep telling myself what happened. You're not telling it to anybody else. You're just telling it to your own brain, because your brain thinks that it's really important for you to remember this. Because maybe somehow if you remember this, then it means that you won't get hurt in the future. Ladies, getting hit by a bus hurts, whether you see it coming or whether you don't. If you constantly live in tension and fear of it happening again, it still hurts even if it happens, even if you see it coming, even if you live in anticipation of it 24/7. And if it never comes, then all that's happened is that you've left yourself tense and anxious 24/7. It doesn't actually prevent you from getting hurt. If you're not okay with your husband watching porn, then anytime he does, you're going to feel hurt by it. Does this make sense? So trying to live in the past and keeping that past fear with you, your brain thinks is helping you, and it's not. So use your prefrontal cortex and recognize that that's all that's happening. Oh, this is just my brain wanting to tell the story because it thinks that telling the story is what's going to keep me safe. It thinks that telling the story is what's going to enable me to get through this later, or to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Especially if by telling the story, I see my husband in a negative light, and then I subconsciously pull away from him and I don't allow myself to connect with him. If I'm not connected to him, I can't be as hurt. And that's totally true, except that all you're doing is disconnecting from him in advance. All it's doing is creating a space and a disconnect between you and the one person you actually want to connect with most. It's not actually creating the result that you want. What you actually want is for him to be more connected to you, to be closer to you, for you to have a better relationship than you do now. And telling the story of how he's the bad guy, telling the story that only keeps the negative, is not allowing you to create the life that you actually want. And this can be with any relationship that you have. Letting go of the story, first of all, requires awareness. What is the story that you're telling? Okay, same 5 steps I always give. Step number 1, awareness. This is what I deep dive in my program. It's a 5-step, very simple. Okay, not easy, but simple. Awareness. What is the story that you're telling? Step number 2, acceptance. Accept that that's the story that you tell. We have a lot of resistance, a lot of judgment. There is no need for any of it. You don't need to judge yourself for the story you're telling. Oh, I can't believe I think about it this way. I should let this go. It's been so long. All of that we can let go. No judgment. I'm going to accept that that's the story that I'm telling. Step number 3, process it. I'm going to process the emotional pain that I'm feeling. Step number 4, I'm going to choose a new story. I'm going to choose a new thought. How do I want to tell the trip to Hawaii? Do I want to keep both? Do I want to keep the 50-50? Or am I willing to let go of the negative? Not because it didn't happen, not because I wasn't hurt by it, but because that's not the story that I want to keep telling myself. That's not what I want to keep remembering for the rest of my life. That's not what I want to keep feeling anytime someone brings up the word Hawaii, right? And then step number 5 is retrain your brain, which looks like being aware. So every time you think about Hawaii or somebody brings it up, whatever that is for you, that story, you notice the old thought coming up in your brain. You repeat steps 1 through 3 so that you process it without judgment. And then you choose that new thought and you retrain your brain on purpose. And you say things like, I am practicing believing something new. I am practicing telling myself this thought instead. I used to think this old thought, but I don't anymore. And I'm giving myself permission to choose a new story. And I think that's the most important part about telling a different part of your story. Telling your story differently, letting go of the story that you have been, comes with giving yourself permission to tell a different story. If you need permission, ladies, I give it to you. You have permission to tell a different story. You have permission to stop telling the story that he hurt you and you're the victim and there's nothing you can do. You have permission to tell a different story of every single memory that you've ever had. You have my permission to change all of it. And that's the most beautiful part, is that it's actually possible. So ladies, if you're struggling, if you're holding on to something, if you find yourself constantly rehashing the same thing over and over again, ladies, I want to offer that it's time to let go of the story, because the story isn't keeping you safe. And the story is actually what's keeping you stuck. All right? All right, ladies, I love you so much. Today, again, I really want to encourage you to ask yourself, What story am I keeping that's no longer serving me? What story am I keeping that I want to let go of because I'm tired of the weight that it gives me when I hold on to it? And give yourself permission to do so. If you want help with this, ladies, come work with me. I will help you because you deserve to tell a different story. All right? I love you, ladies, so much, and I'll see you next week on a brand new episode. So take care. All right, ladies, if you enjoyed this podcast, then I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take everything on the podcast and we actually get to apply it in order to transform your life. And I know that that is a big promise, but it's 100% true. On the podcast, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It's like reading a book, an instruction manual via audio on how to ride a bike. And my coaching program is where you actually ride the bike. And that is what creates the transformation. This is what actually enables you to go from point A to point B, to actually create the transformation that you are seeking. If you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you are loving everything, but you just can't see the end from where you are now, then I want to help you. Come work with me one-on-one. I have a lifetime access program, which means it doesn't expire. You come work with me. I will help you every step of the way and work with you personally to make sure that you get where you want to go. I can't wait to see you there. Head to my website today, jolenewind.com, and sign up.